Welcome to another episode of the 360 Salesforce Mastermind podcast with my co-host Avinash Boyana. In today's episode, we have Lela Koopal from Koopal Consulting. It was a fascinating discussion. Avinash, I know you had a lot of key takeaways. What were your takeaways on this episode?
Yeah, one interesting thing that struck my mind was she mentioned SIs must be at the forefront of innovation, and she explains in detail why she thinks. But that was it's very refreshing to me because whenever you think of innovation, you're typically thinking product and ISV, and she really explains why SIs should focus on innovation. It's just because they work with customers hand in hand. They spend a lot of time with them versus selling license and almost like a self-service mode. So her perspective is SIs have a lot of access to the customers, and they shouldn't just be doing stuff, but also innovating, which in hindsight, I think makes a lot of sense. So that coaching that she offers to SIs is it's quite impressive. And the other thing that struck the most was that she actually spends time and effort vetting her clients in terms of do they fit the ICP, and if they do not, then she would politely decline or move in the other direction. And also she mentioned paid assessments, and then especially when people starting out, they tend to give away a lot of free stuff just to get the traction and everything. On other hand, we have Lela who's I value my time, so if you are serious, then you should pay. So that's a pretty bold move, but also speaks of someone's confidence in what they're doing.
I agree. Tons of takeaways there. Leila's super sharp. I learned a lot, and I know we were just even chatting. I was listening and digesting to a lot of what she was saying and thinking through things. And I agree. It's a fresh way to think about Salesforce SIs on the forefront of innovation. She came from a background doing what she's doing now, highly experienced in it, has a lot of insights. And I agree, right? The value proposition you give and knowing your value, understanding your value, and straight up just being confident in your results that you can deliver to prospects and clients, etc., was great to hear and get her perspective on. Awesome. Let's dive in.
Cool. Let's do that.
Thanks for joining us, Lela.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we always typically, when we go through these episodes, go through background, especially before people venturing in and getting into the Salesforce space and all that side of things. So what were you doing before you got into the Salesforce ecosystem?
So very interesting question, because I've been in the ecosystem for about 10 years now. And I think anybody on video will look at me and realize I'm probably a lot younger than most people who have been in the ecosystem for 10 years. And I was very lucky, and it was one of the first things I did out of college. So a couple years after graduating, I ended up at a small Salesforce partner that was both a system integrator and transforming into an ISV at the time. And yeah, I got my start very early, kind of grew up in this world.
So did you have a technical degree then when you kind of left college and joined Salesforce, or did you have a different type of degree, or how did that work?
No, I had a psych degree. I just wanted to graduate. I'm not a studious person. I know that's probably going to rub a lot of people the wrong way, but I did not excel in school. So I just needed to get in and out.
I like it. And then what role, when you joined Salesforce or started working for that partner, was it an admin, an analyst?
No, so I kind of have floated in and out between the different worlds. So one of my first jobs out of college was working with a real estate agent and a broker, and I was helping with demand gen and marketing, and ended up creating a line of business for him. But I can't take a ton of credit for doing that because I was a kid. I was like 20 years old. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I moved all the way over to Nashville, and I got a job working in tech sales essentially, but it was more revenue lifecycle management. So if you remember those companies, I resold NetApp renewals, and it just kind of like smiling and dialing inside sales. trying to get customers to renew or punting them off to the NetApp team if they were wanting to buy new shelves or licenses. So when I took the job at, the name was Synaptic Advisory Partners at the time, which I think now they've broken up into two, the product and the services company. I was supposed to be doing inside sales, which I did do a lot of, but I joined very much in startup mode. So there were about 50 people globally at the company at the time. And they were coming out with their new product, Eureka, which is their ISV. It was a dynamic form builder, drag and drop, really cool. It's evolved a ton over the last 10 years, which has been really nice to see. And so we were all kind of doing everything, right? So I learned how to demo in environments. I learned how to configure. I learned how to get product feedback and do a lot of quasi product management stuff. And that's when I started to get hands-on in the Salesforce world, which is how I ended up getting my role at Salesforce directly, where I started as a solution engineer and obviously got way more hands-on in the products.
So how did this transition to partnerships happen?
So I went the technical path. I actually started as a technical partner person. So at the time, I was a solution engineer. I didn't really like that world. And my leadership team supported me in transitioning internally because I know I didn't want to leave Salesforce. And I ended up taking a role on the ISV team, which was so startup-y at the time. It was really cool. I like to call it the glory days of the partner world at Salesforce. So 2018, I believe it was, I joined at the time Andrew Albert's org as a tech evangelist, which is essentially a partner solution engineer. So I was helping these new ISVs with best practices when it came to Salesforce first architecture and passing security review. That was my first toe into this partnership water, I guess you could say, but I was still very technical. But I'm fluent in Spanish. And so one of the RVPs or maybe AVPs, I think, on the PAM side, the partner account management side, wanted to expand the ISV program into Latin America. And I ended up helping him with that just because he didn't have much capacity, obviously. And there were very few folks on the team that could do business in the Spanish language. So we ended up converting about 20 different apps or partner types because in Latin America, they were predominantly resellers down there into ISVs and generated over 2 million in shared revenue. And I was like, oh, this is really fun. But I wasn't quite ready to move over to this revenue side yet. So I ended up spending a couple more years on that team and then about a year at Accenture as a solution architect. And I love Accenture. I had a great time working there, but a couple hellish projects told me I did not want to be in the delivery leads and I preferred more revenue driving activities. So I left and went to a mid-sized system integrator, and that's where I started my partnership journey.
So you were pretty much a hands-on technical person who was working with ISVs, and that gave you an exposure to like how ISVs operate, how do they think, where do they lack, where do they need the help. I guess that's probably where the seed got planted, where this is a gap that I can address it better if I go on my own. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, so I wasn't on my own. So I actually moved over to my passion lies in system integrators. And I love ISVs because I think it takes so much creativity to be able to develop a product and know how to bring that to market. But I truly believe that system integrators should be at the forefront of innovation. And unfortunately, they're not. They just need a little bit of help to do that. And so I spent a couple years at two different system integrators at different levels of maturity. And at that point was when I was like, okay, I'm going to go off on my own. I'm going to do this. I'd had my business plan for over a year. I knew there was a need. And when I joined the partnership team in 2018, it was less than 6 months when Salesforce decided to switch their tiering and start giving less mature partners less and less support. And I recognized that there was a huge need for that. And so I wanted to service those partners that had quite a bit of opportunity, but untapped potential because they didn't know what they were doing. And most partners, their strategy relies around one person at the vendor, which is a terrible, terrible place to be. So I wanted to help them develop their own strategies.
Tell us more little bit on the innovation, because when we hear the word innovation, immediately we form a correlation with product. But you're saying that SIs should be at the forefront of innovation, who we more often than not perceive like delivery, implementation, getting the work done. So this is an interesting thing that you just brought up. So just double click into that, please.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the inception of a product, what is it? It's a gap that needs to be filled, or you had to create a custom solution for it, right? SIs should be able to identify what that is. If they're servicing clients the way that they should and they're thinking about their business correctly, right? They're getting really, really deep into the industry and the ICP that they serve, the ideal client profile. They should be able to anticipate needs, be able to anticipate trends, and understand what their clients are facing. I truly believe the reason that SIs are more reactive instead of proactive is because you get a ton of really smart people around, but they don't really know how to sell. And they're just responding to problems rather than being able to go, you know, I see this problem at a customer, and I know there are hundreds of other customers with this problem. And we've actually seen it 3 or 4 times across different customers. They're probably all experiencing this. And instead of being able to track that trend and either create a product or create an accelerator or offering around about this, and then proactively go and seek out customers that are likely facing the same problem, they're just waiting for somebody to tell them it's wrong.
We talk about that a lot on some of the episodes, and right, there's the ICP and the niche, and what you mentioned, a lot of people that start becoming SIs, etc., come from technical backgrounds. They don't know how to sell. They think Salesforce is going to give them leads, and they say we're in the healthcare industry, but they don't really know what that means. I think the way you put it was perfect, because the ones that are really scaling and growing right now are finding those solutions, those pain points, being able to even market on LinkedIn, etc., talking to their ICPs, really getting messages that resonate, providing solutions. And it really seems like they're the ones that are, at least in 2024 and 25, really taking off and making
Yes,
things work.
you're spot on. And I love system integrators. So I hope that we don't lose listeners when I say this, but they've gotten really entitled when they do go to Salesforce and go, I expect leads. Salesforce and all these other vendors have created this amazing technology that has been able to support entire economies. I mean, an ecosystem is an economy built around that technology. And it's funny because you see the evolution, right? I think in the early days, the first system integrators, if you go back to Blue Wolf, they had a very clear value add to the product. And that's why they did astronomically well, because they were very easily able to articulate, this is the value of Salesforce, this is the value we add, and together we bring a value to our shared customers that neither of us are delivering on our own. And it's so incredibly powerful, and these are the results. And everything they did was telling the story around that. And when you start to get more and more and more, you see these companies that are doing amazing things and getting leads from Salesforce, and everybody thinks that they're doing something great. And I don't want to say that they're not, because they are transforming customer experiences, generally speaking. But very few of them are able to articulate why it matters to the customer, why it should matter to the partner, and how they're doing that, right? They just want to focus on, oh, we have 200 developers and they can do whatever you want. No, that's staff aug. That's a body shop. That's not a transformative solution. So you're not telling a story. You're just being reactive.
Because if I'm a client, it sounds like a nightmare. It's like I don't want that many just developers and stuff. I want industry knowledge. I want you to understand when I say something or we talk about a problem, it doesn't take 6 months to ramp up on my industry or my problems.
Exactly. And I will say I'm a go-to-market expert, so I view things with a much more critical lens. But I get hundreds of LinkedIn messages and emails that are so generic every single day, where they're going, oh, congrats on this. We help companies like yours do X, Y, and Z. And my gut reaction is always, what do I do then? Tell me what I do. You know my business so well. If you know my business so well, then 1,000 leads would not be relevant to me, because I don't want to have to reach out to 1,000 people a day.
Right.
Yeah, we all get those 1,000 leads promise emails.
Exactly.
And when I see any message that starts with we or I, it's like next,
Exactly.
right? You're talking about yourself.
And what's funny is I even get system integrators reaching out to me about trying to sell to me or trying to collaborate or partner with me. And I hate that because this is why you're not getting sales, because you didn't take 2 seconds to understand that not only do I not need you because I have a technical background, so I can build it out myself if I need to, but two, you're my customer. There is no collaboration or partnership here. It is strictly vendor and client. Why would I partner with somebody that I try to sell to?
Right. Or when other vendors want to partner, what they're saying is get me projects. Like, I'm not going to be your salesperson.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
You know what I mean?
I get that all the time where they're like, well, give me leads and then I'll give you a referral fee. Like, I'm sorry. Why would I go and chase down your clients who I don't know, who I'm not already talking to? What value do I get out of that? Because what's more valuable to me is to spend my time chasing after my clients, and instead of a 10% referral fee, which I don't even know your value prop, your deal size, your sales cycle, I don't know anything, I'm getting the full fee for the engagement.
So, Lela, just going back to like your journey, you mentioned like obviously we know that, but for our audience, GTM is your strong point, like the whole GTM framework. And this is something, just again going back to your journey, is this something that you picked up on the job while you were like Accenture? Were you like doing Accenture strategy side of things? Because you were more on the delivery side. So just tell us a little bit more, like when you got introduced to like GTM, how did you learn it?
So I didn't learn that at Accenture. I mean, I think Accenture is so big that they don't even need GTM anymore. I mean, obviously they didn't scale to that size without it, but they literally can do everything, right? For anybody. They have 500,000 people. I learned it when I was at a smaller company, and I'm going to shout out Brock Hubbard. I'm sure a lot of listeners know him when he was a part of the Better Together program at Salesforce. The company that I was at after leaving Accenture actually was in that program, one of the Jumpstart partners in that. And I was very, very new to the role when I met Brock. And he was like, what do you guys do? You are not big enough to say you do all these things. And that always stuck with me. And it made me really think and reframe as I was moving through this role, how we were talking to clients, how we were talking to the partner, and the messaging that we were giving. Because we were trying to service like 6 verticals, and I don't even think that we were more than 300 people globally. Maybe we were up to 500, but it was majority delivery, and that was split across 2 practices. So we really didn't have the ability to do all of that. And especially when I went to the company after that, we were much larger, but I was establishing the different practices: Salesforce, SAP, ServiceNow, and Adobe, which we later axed. I was trying to explain we need to do this at least quarter by quarter and build a name in each category before we go and expand to the rest. And leadership did not agree with that. There was no patience for it. And I was struggling. I was drowning. I was trying to boil the ocean at once and stay afloat. That's when it really hit me how important it was. Like, you have to do this piece by piece. Not only are you going to burn out your employees when you're asking them to take on this really heavy task, which, let's be real, most senior leaders don't care about anyways, but you're just not going to be successful because nobody knows what to think of you for or what to think of when they see you.
It feels like, did you naturally pick up the skill then by going through this? It seemed like were natural. It seems like it came natural when you had to do this, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I always say I'm really passionate about obviously helping the company, but really I'm here to help the person who's either in that role or will be in that role in the future as an alliances director, because I've been them. I've been the person that is faced with an unmeetable task and burns out after 18, 24 months because they don't have the resources or support or guidance needed, or there was no foundation to build off of. And I'm being asked to execute while I'm trying to also develop strategy.
What do you look for when you're looking to engage or like qualify whether this alliance director is someone that I should be worth spending my time with? Like, do you look at like company size, their revenue, their past work? So how do you determine?
So the first qualifier is always going to be, do you have a real implementation practice or solutions practice? Because a lot of them will be partners. I used air quotes for those just listening, but they're truly just a staffing company, and there was no barrier to entry to the partner program. And that's how they were able to sneak through. And I'm going to tell anybody right now, unless you are massive and you are in consumption based partnerships and constantly driving consumption, you're not really a value adding partner to the vendor. That's not to say you're not value adding. You just need to think of different partnerships that are better aligned with your services. So that's the first thing I always look for. The second thing I look for is employee count and revenue. I tried to play in a couple different spaces, but I have found that mid market is the best for me. I define mid market as 200 to up to 1,000 employees and 30, 40 million in revenue up to about 100 million in revenue. If they are enterprise, I have found it's a boat that's too big for me to steer to get the results that I'm looking for at this stage in my business. And if they are SMB, they are too transactional and focused on chasing the next deal, and they're not ready to be patient enough to develop strategy. So that's the first criteria that I look for. Actually, after working with the client, I started implementing my paid assessments in the beginning. It's 2 weeks, and it helps me evaluate now culturally if they're a good fit, because a lot of companies are looking for fractional employees, not even fractional leadership. And I want to be able to determine what their appetite for change is, or for an outside consultant to come in, what their patience level looks like, because this doesn't happen overnight. And a lot of them expect that. I also want to see how internally that they will digest this change and how difficult they'll be to work with. I've been in the position where I had to grow a spine right there on the spot. And while my consultants will have me to lean on, I don't want them to have to be in a difficult position because I brought on the wrong client for them to work with.
But how do you determine that? Like, do you go through an assessment phase or assessment cycle where you like, okay, this SI is worth investing my time, or they may not be ready?
Yes. So every engagement starts with a paid 2-week assessment. It gets credited to the cost of the engagement, but it's also something where either of us can bow out after it's over and I just provide my findings. But I try to run interviews with every stakeholder that I'll be working with. The first thing I look for is, are they prioritizing the time that we have together, and are they allotting for it? Because if they're not going to do that, well, the engagement's only going to be as successful as these stakeholders want it to be. If you are expecting us to come in and somehow know everything about your business without getting the time of day from anybody to figure out what's going on with your business, this engagement is not going to be successful. You're going to throw away money. So I always look for, how do they prioritize this? The next thing I look for is honesty and transparency, because 9 out of 10 times what you have on your slide deck is not the reality. And so I don't want your slide deck. I want to know what you've actually done. And I need to understand what we're working with, because a lot of folks want some massive transformation that'll come in 3 months. The reality is it takes 2 quarters after the engagement ends to really start seeing some results and getting ROI and getting traction. We can get you some quick wins in there, but it's not going to be massive, because that's not how anything works. If you tell me that you've worked with 12 clients and have these great case studies, and I believe you, only to find out that you didn't really do anything transformative and the AE didn't see any results from you, you're going to get very different results than if you had been honest, right? Because I need to know baseline what we're working with to know what needs to be built up and what needs to be created. Because the first thing is, you need the story. We have to uncover that story. And then the second thing is, we have to create this story and all the collateral around it: case studies, assets accelerators, POVs, white papers, testimonials. And then after that, we have to go through and rank your relationships and enable your internal employees on that story and figure out, do you actually have a strategic relationship with this person, or did you close one deal with them 3 quarters ago and they forgot who you were and you don't even know their boss? Because that, more often than not, is the way that these mid-market SIs are going about this. And they
I
think
believe
it's
that's not too And I believe that it's not too difficult to find out, like especially when you like led so many projects, when you ask the right questions, you can quickly know, is it like a lift and shift project or did it involve any like true KPIs and
But
the evaluation around it?
everybody always has this crazy story, and then you find out that they had 12 consultants managing Sales Cloud, and that was it. And it was like a basic implementation at best. And it's like,
That's actually a good segue because we asked this overall on all to everybody to get their perspectives on this question as well. So, what's your just the Salesforce partner ecosystem overall, like just the broad ecosystem? What's your view on just the current state? I know we've talked some things here, but like in general, what do you feel the ecosystem looks like in 2025?
that's a loaded question. I'm trying to keep Salesforce on my good side.
Well, and it's mainly the partners. I mean, because the especially the SIs and the ISVs, and I know a lot of people talk about saturation, things like that. But is it a good outlook for the SIs? Do they need to pivot a little bit and try some different things? Or
You know, I think that Salesforce has finally started incentivizing the correct behaviors from partners. And I
interesting.
know a lot of people don't agree with that, but there were so many people getting a seat at the table that weren't really adding value to Salesforce or the customers. And I think they're finally starting to look and see that. The problem is, and I know everybody wants to talk about, well, Salesforce changes requirements every year. If you're truly adding value and innovating, you will always be able to hit that moving goalpost. The problem is when you're trying to chase the goalpost and the activities around it, and you're not actually trying to help your customers.
By value, I'm guessing you're referring to like successful implementations, case studies, IPs, tools and accelerators, work that Salesforce can leverage and say almost like vouch for you in front of their customer.
Exactly. That's really what it is. It's like, you have to be able to tell that story because people are going, well, it used to be customer testimonials and then it was projects completed and then it was certifications. And I'm over here going, why are you trying to chase one of those goalposts? You should be going after all of them. You should be continuously adding expertise and accredited professional statuses and certifications. You should be continuously tracking your case studies and your customers. You should continuously be chasing what's new in your industry to make sure you know what's happening and having good project reviews and project completion. And you should be submitting all of those. And you should be keeping those relationships with the sellers at the partners on the vendor side warm because you're working with the same customers, right? You should be sending quarterly and monthly updates to the RVPs, AVPs, etc. in the patch that you work in the most, letting them know what you're doing, how you've contributed to the ecosystem, highlighting customer stories that have been really successful. And in the age of consumption, implementation is not enough. You need to track adoption and consumption as well.
How hard is it to infuse or ingrain this into the head of a Salesforce SI founder, CEO? The
So
reason I ask this question is because I come from a Deloitte background. You come from an Accenture. I'm so glad we are meeting after we left those companies. Otherwise, we would have never become friends. People who work in those companies would know what I mean. For everyone's awareness, like say Deloitte and Accenture are like cutthroat competitors when it comes to the Salesforce ecosystem. So that's where I'm coming from. So from my background, and I only realized this after I left Deloitte because this was taken for me, like top-notch delivery base expectation, meeting CSAT base expectations, building tools and accelerators base expectation. So everything which was a base expectation for me for like many, many years, when I come out and see like people like are not even aware or they're
yeah,
like, do I need to do this?
they're
Why?
fighting
I'm
it.
getting my staff aug projects, so why? So I think I almost answered my question, but would love to hear from you.
No, you're right. And I think the problem is, and that's another thing that I do in my assessment is I try to figure out what was your motivation for having this company. Because if you're just chasing money, it's going to be really hard to get you to invest in any programs that are transformative, but will take time to generate revenue. Because it's not cheap and it's not overnight. So I always try to figure out what is your motivation for this. And I love working with founders and leaders that have a goal. We want to shake up the industry. We want to help these customers that have been underserviced or, X, Y, and Z, insert a motivation that's not just money driven. And it's because you're actually going to do the right activities, right? I think one thing that is forgotten on a lot of people is that so going back to the beginning of our conversation when we were talking about how services companies don't really know how to sell at all or like sell a service. Now try to translate that to the world of the customer and the partner or the vendor that are so used to tangible products. And they're over here like, what do you offer? You have to offer an outcome and an accelerator, something that makes it easy for them to understand and digest. Otherwise, it's just so confusing to them. It's taken me a long time to really get comfortable in the services world, right? And so, I get it now, but I always try to remind myself what it was like my first year. What was a Salesforce implementation company, right? I guess I'm thankful that I'm in Houston, Texas, and no one here is really in tech. So I have to find myself constantly explaining what an ecosystem is and what a tech company is to begin with before I can even explain to people what I do. And if I challenge myself, if I give up and just say marketing, which is not at all what I do, then I failed because I was unable to explain what this is, what this world is in under 30 seconds, because that's what you have to do to customers and vendors.
So it almost sounds like it's harder. Is it harder for a mid-size enterprise like that or a company make a shift? It's almost like a big boat, right? Is it what other options do they have when you're helping them with this, from turning the big ship and it's going to take some time, you're kind of doing it this way, but you need to do it this way? Do a lot of them just also say, I'm good, we're just going to keep going down this road? Kind of like what you're saying with the money, what's the motivation?
Yeah, of course.
And for someone starting out then, for a small SI, I guess, what can they take away from what you work with your clients on and the state of the ecosystem, and right, they're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to kind of launch their agency? Is there any like single piece of advice you could give them if someone's starting out and launching, or they're still small right now? Is there like one piece of advice you would give them to kind of make sure they're going down the right path?
Do it right from the start, and you won't have to make a seismic shift halfway through. I always want to encourage companies to grow responsibly, not by any means necessary. That means turning down deals if it doesn't align with what you want to be known for.
Do you feel then, with this might sound a little weird and to the ecosystem as well, but do you feel the days of like people with just tech skills, given everything we're talking about now, even launching an agency is highly unlikely going to succeed if they just know the tech side?
That day is gone. AI is evolving so rapidly. I mean, Avinash, I think you and I were introduced to each other through your session when you talked about outcome-based pricing and generative AI to actually automate implementations. There are so many technologies that do that now. I mean, I personally partner with one of them that is phenomenal. My business partner partners with another one that's great as well. There are so many of them popping up, and it's only going to get better and be able to handle more and more complex code. You truly have to know business. I even think that is the case for the consultants at these big firms. If you don't know how to drive bottom line and start thinking outside of the box and solving problems instead of just hands on the keyboard, you're going to lose your job. But it's not going to be the tech, it's going to be the people who know how to use the tech.
Like the AI tech.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. It's like one level of abstraction up. It's the people that are learning these new tools above and outside of even Salesforce. It's like the new tech you need to learn. I agree, because the days of, adding a field to a page, right, or doing basic configurations kind of over as well. But I agree with what you're mentioning.
Yeah, and why would you want that to be your skill set? That's so boring.
It is. It is. I mean, it was fun like 20 years ago. It was like amazing, right? It's like you go into these clients and you're like, look, I'll show you a demo. It was awesome.
Yeah. It's funny because even just like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, that was so wow. Things move quickly, and if you're not ready to move, you will get left behind.
And on a whole side topic, you speak really well. You're sharp, like right. You know what you're talking about. What daily habits, like personal, even, do you have to kind of keep your business intact, have the energy, and have success? Is there any like daily habits that you have?
So I am a serial killer's dream because I love my routine. I try to automate as much as possible in my life so that I can continue focusing on what really matters. And I do have days where I work really late. Of course, I'm in the first year of a business, actually two businesses. So that is very hectic. But I always start my morning with a workout. I think it helps me stay refreshed and grounded. And then I jump into work. And I always try to make sure that I try to prioritize eating whole foods because I feel that my focus is better, my concentration is better, my energy levels are better to keep going. So I'm really, really big on health and daily movement outside of my morning workout. I try to get up and walk around, help the blood flow to my brain. It helps break up those stagnant working sessions. And every night I try to have dinner with my fiance, whether that is cooking dinner or ordering out, but I always try to have that connection. I think that helps keep somebody really grounded, is not getting caught up in whatever your venture is, but actually staying connected to your family and friends and the people that are going to be supporting you throughout the journey.
I've never heard the serial killer's dream before. That's kind of funny. That made me laugh for a minute, like behind while you were talking.
Yeah, I love routine. I think that the more that you can automate these little decisions in your life, the less mental load that you will have, and the more you'll be able to focus on the real meat.
Anything that you might have realized during this journey that you felt like, okay, had I knew it before 1 or 2 years ago, I would have done it differently.
Oh my gosh. So I actually tried to start this business 5 years ago.
Okay, so maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
It's hard for me to say. I don't think I would have been ready. I think that you really need to know what you're doing. And beyond that, you need to have a really good network. I've met with a few budding entrepreneurs that are younger, and I would say I'm pretty young. I'm in my early 30s, and I already have a lift because many of my peers, when I was exiting corporate, were not C-level executives. And I can't lean on those relationships. I'm trying to build everything from scratch. But I have the benefit of having two major companies under my belt and having a very solid amount of relationships. I would say build your craft and your expertise and network as much as possible, but also make sure that you're continuing to put yourself out there as a thought leader. And that needs to be done like a good 12 months before you launch into self employment. Not only will you start to gain more credibility and be more recognizable before you actually go off on your own, people will start to know you, but you'll already start to have your voice and it'll just make sense. And it kind of so, same thing I tell my clients I'm finding is the same thing that's true for me. It takes about 3 months to really build that strategy, 6 months of consistently, picking away at it to get a seat at the table, 9 months to start really getting pipeline, 12 months to revenue. And that is a result of the strategy. You're going to have some quick wins coming in and out in that time frame, but those are going to be more bluebirds than anything strategic. You can't really guarantee that they're going to come in, and you also can't rely on them when you're planning out your growth for the next year because they were just, kind of coming in. And I think when you rely on those, that's how you get really messy growth where you make 10 million one year and then you make 5 million the next. And then you're like, oh crap, what happened here? So really start developing everything that you can, your business plan, your content plan, putting yourself out there, networking. You don't have to tell anybody what you're doing because you don't want to jeopardize your full-time employment because you're going to need the savings from that to get you to last you. But you can start putting your expertise out there and getting and building trust with people about a year before.
Because people, even back to the full time gig, if you're doing thought leadership posting on LinkedIn, people sometimes feel weird when they work for a company. Can I say this? Am I allowed to say this? And a lot of people feel weird when they work for a company, putting themselves out there like that as well. I've
It's
seen.
true. I think that I would have been under a microscope had I done that. But why would you want to work for a company that doesn't support every version of yourself? If you're not writing these articles or sharing them during working hours, what is it? Does it matter to them? I think that it's a really toxic work culture when you're thinking about, is my boss going to be judging me for what I'm doing on a Saturday afternoon?
Right. Yep. That's
It's also,
awesome advice.
and it's also to do with the- your current employer, like, where they're operating. I know, like, firms which have like a strong advisory presence, you're almost like tight-lipped. You're not supposed to say anything. You're not supposed to put anything out there. In fact, there was one of our client, a large, massive customer that, I led a digital transformation for them. Even till date, I'm not supposed to mention them, like, anywhere. Even if, like, I'm out of my previous job and anything, for the rest of my life, I'm not supposed to talk about the engagement. So that's how tight some of these engagements are.
Yeah, and I have friends that work at BCG, McKinsey, and I know that they have to be really careful about what they post on LinkedIn. I think that's really unfortunate because there are so many ways that you can share your expertise without disparaging any clients or employers, or even mentioning anything about that, right? I mean, I think about all the content I put out about partnerships. I put out 2 articles a week for the last 9 months, if not more than that. At one point, starting in February, I was putting out 4 articles or 3 articles a week just from one newsletter, helping people understand the different operating units that Salesforce has on top of my other weekly newsletters. And I think I've maybe anonymized client case studies less than 10 times. It's just about sharing expertise and using real world examples sometimes.
Awesome. This was an awesome episode, very informative, a ton of information, a ton of key takeaways. I guess we always end with the final question. Where is Lela going to be in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you see yourself going in your company?
Yeah, so very exciting things because I actually started another venture with somebody called Partner. And we are going to be working with the enterprise vendors, so the Salesforce, ServiceNows, et cetera, of the world, and owning that outsourced ecosystem motion. If you go back to the revenue lifecycle management days where they would outsource their low priority or low tier customers, we are now working to own the low tier partners for these vendors to help them drive more revenue on both sides and give them the support that they're needing and create more innovation for customers. So teaching them the things that the PAMs aren't teaching them, the co-sell motion truly. So over the next 24 months, what you're going to see is Koopal Consulting actually rolling up into Partnered as a strategic advisor and picking a very small number of engagements per year that'll amplify the results for our main clients and drive success for those system integrators. But the goal is to have a valuation of over 20 million for Partnered in the next 5 years.
So
And
would your criteria of like that revenue range would still be applied to some of these SIs that are, for lack of a better term, not getting enough attention?
I think so. My heart goes out to the mid market folks because the SMBs are in a very different space and the enterprises have assistance, whether that's from the vendor or internally or elsewhere. The mid markets kind of fall. So I do anticipate continuing to focus on that market, but we'll see where it goes. Ultimately, what I'm looking to do is pull out 5 strategic engagements each year from the cohort of partners that we are managing under Partnered.
awesome. Well, and definitely is Partnered. I think I've seen it. Is it PAR? I saw it online, but I forgot how to spell it. So I think it's a unique spelling, right?
So I have been kind of not so slyly promoting it. It's not like on my LinkedIn, but I am reposting everything. It's a PRTNRD because selling isn't only about the 8.
Amazing. Did you just make an announcement on this podcast?
I did. Come get partnered.
Love it. That's a great way to close the episode. Thanks again, Lela. It was a great chat, great way to end, and talk soon.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
That's awesome.